So my name is Ziegler. As he said, I'm from Finland. I'm an agile coach, and that sounds almost like we're like anonymous alcoholics or something. But what I'm going to talk about is give you some tools about agile transitions. Okay? Who here is actually doing agile right now in their company? Hands up. Okay, not that many. So a lot of you have perhaps a change in front of you in the coming years, right? And those of you who have tried out Agile, how has it been? Excellent? Easy? Fun? Yeah. So there's a lot of fun times ahead of you, but it can also be quite a challenge to try out Agile, especially when you go to a bigger company. It's easy to do in a 5-man team. I've done that before. And I've seen what happens when you do really big companies. We have this small mobile phone manufacturer in Finland that you might know. I heard that they had some problems with their Agile. Disclaimer, I don't work for Nokia and I haven't worked for Nokia, but I have friends who have worked there, so I have hearsay. But the bigger the company is, the more challenging it is. And what I'm going to talk about is some things you might want to consider if you are in a, let's say, medium-sized company or a slightly bigger company and you want to change into Agile. Okay? So, a couple of reasons why you might want to consider Agile. This is a study on the growing software complexity. So this is the how many lines of code the Ford vehicles had from 2005 to 2010. So it went up from 2.5 million to about 10 million in about 5 years, so 6 years. So as you can see, it went up 4 times. Might that create any problems in how you manage a project? If the size of your project gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it gets more complicated and more complicated? Anyone ever have any requirements change in the project? Right? They keep changing every week, right? Okay. Here's another nice example. Fighter jets, F-22, 1.7 million. F-35, 5.7. Boeing 787, 6.5. S-Class Daimler Mercedes car, 98.6 million lines of code. Small piece of software, right?
Why it doesn't fly?
Hmm?
Why it doesn't fly?
I don't know. Probably an SLR might actually fly if you put some wings on it. It goes quite fast. So, but they have a lot of software in products these days. I don't know how much code there is in an iPhone, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 million lines of code, maybe? I don't know. If anyone knows, let me know. Probably if you have a wristwatch that is digital, it probably has a huge amount of code these days. If I remember correctly, the S-Class Daimler had something like between 70 and 100 microprocessors in that car. And each of them has an operating system. And they all communicate with each other. That's the kind of products that we are doing these days. Now, at the same time, there's another study about average time to markets and how they have developed over the years. So they have over the years gone down quite a lot. So there's a business expectation that you deliver faster and faster and faster, right? 10 years ago, it was completely okay to have a 2-year software project. These days, if you have 2 years to make any kind of product for the internet, for the web, by the time you release it, someone has been on the market for at least 1.5 years already. So if you have been working on a Facebook clone and you're still working on it, it might be a good idea to drop the idea, right? So one of the things behind here is that we had a kind of like a culture change. If you look how software perhaps was done before, or how at least the processes were planned, they were planned more like you plan the work in a factory. First you do this, then you do that, then you do that, then you do that, and you have a nice flow that goes through your assembly line, right? And each and everyone has their job on the assembly line. I write this piece of code there, and my colleague writes the next piece of code, and so on, so on. Then comes the tester, then comes deployment, and until you get into production. That's kind of what people have been doing. And it probably worked quite okay back when the software wasn't that big and that complex. But now that you're doing more something like this, you're doing R&D. You don't even know what you're going to build, right? If someone claims they have a fixed scope project, I would be very surprised. There's no such thing as a fixed scope project. That means they will never have any change requests. Anyone ever get change requests in a fixed scope project? I definitely get. They always keep changing their mind. They don't, even the customer doesn't know what he wants. So Agile is something that helps you to address these kind of problems. When you have a project where you don't exactly know what you actually want to get out of it. We might have a vague idea, that's where we want to go, but we don't know how to get there. So we use iterative and incremental approaches to get one step. I think Mary mentioned that in the morning. Take one small step, take another small step, and so forth. Right? So, a lot of companies are changing their behavior from one version where they work, let's say, with waterfall. I actually haven't seen real waterfall for a really long time. And most people who claim to be doing waterfall actually are not doing waterfall because they usually have feedback loops anyway, and they don't do a real waterfall. But companies are changing from one way of working into another one. And that can create some problems. Here's a couple of problems that I've listed that I've seen or colleagues of mine have seen when they try to start with Agile. First one has a nice story behind it. No, sorry, second one actually. So the first one is that they actually don't have a reason why they go Agile. The management just decides tomorrow, let's go Agile. And you ask them, as a coach, why do you want to do Agile? We need to? Something like that. There's no business reason for it. At least they probably find one if they look for it, but they don't know it. And think about it. You're trying to convince people in your company to change how they work. And you can't even say why. If you want to change something, at least have a reason for it. Let's say you want to drop your time to market to half. That might make sense. We can even measure it. Our time to market right now is 12 months. We want it to be 6 months in 1 year. Great. Let's change how we work and see how it works. Okay? Lack of communication. Now, that has the fun story. A colleague of mine is a trainer and coach also in Germany. He went to a company. He was there supposed to help them with their Agile transition. He came in Monday morning to do a training. Now, what did he find out when he came to the training? That no one told the people in the training why they even have that training. So he introduced himself. Hello, my name is this, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to do the training and then coach you through your Agile transition. And we will be working together in the next couple of months to change how you work. And they go like, huh? The management forgot to tell them. And you can imagine what kind of chaos that caused on that day. So these kind of things happen. Another one. The company focuses only on changing processes. I've seen that. I know a company in Finland that thought going Agile is they hire a consultant to write a new process specification, a document, right? Has a nice diagram and that kind of stuff, and then they just train it and then they're Agile. Any of you who have done Agile, that doesn't work. You need to change the behavior of the people, and you need to change also the structure of your system, more or less. Okay? Another big problem, no room for failure. What do you do to learn? You fail, right? If you want to do continuous improvement, you have to take the risk of failure. How can you guarantee success? I had that once in a meeting with a client. So he asked, can I prove him that this will work? Like, we're going to change into Agile, and I want guarantees that our time to market will go down by 6 months. And I said, no, I can't. It depends on what you guys are doing. If you don't want to do it, I can't help you. Another common one, management and leadership not willing to change themselves. Anyone have that? Yeah. So I don't need to change, I'm the big boss, but you guys need to change, right? I keep doing whatever I'm doing, and It's not my problem, but you need to change. You need to do faster. Please, do. Okay. Another one that often happens. Companies only buy training. Yes, I'm a certified Scrum trainer. Also another almost anonymous thing. But I believe that training alone does not help you. Think about this. Who here has a driver's license? Everyone almost, okay? So for you to drive a car, if you only have the theory part, and then we let you drive around on the street. I don't know how Vilnius is, but it didn't look that bad, but let's say we let you loose in Rome, or you know this nice roundabout in Paris, around the Arc de Triomphe, and you only had theory lessons for 2 days on the theory of pressing the pedal and turning the steering wheel. Can you drive? No. Okay. You need someone to actually sit with you in the car and help you do it. Okay, why don't companies do that when they do something like Agile? They send people to a 2-day training and then let them loose. The risks are huge. Think about how much money a team burns in 1 month. I know about the prices here, but in Finland it's like 50 to 100,000 euros per month for one team. So, risky stuff, okay? Nothing changes if nothing changes. Well, this is a funny one. So, companies go Agile or Scrum, and they take Scrum and say, this does not fit our environment, so we change Scrum so that it fits our environment. Okay, what's the point of that? So you change Scrum to be whatever you're doing already, just to say you're doing Scrum? Doesn't make any sense. Okay. Another one. Not making the process transparent and meaningful to the individual. If I ask you to do something or change, and there's no benefit in it for you, it doesn't make your life any easier, it might even make it worse. Why are you doing it? It's really, really difficult to motivate people when it's only pain for you. Find some reasons for make it like meaningful for people. It's more fun to work in a nice team. So I want to work like this because it's fun. As some people said here, it's fun when you do Agile. It's a good benefit for people. Okay. So a little bit of a transition. So we're going from a world that looks like this, the cubicle world, to a world of teamwork. Right? So what does that mean? Team and people empowerment. So you have to give the people a lot more power to do things, to make decisions, to create stuff, instead of just seeing them as small pieces in a big machine that you direct as a project manager or something, and like you do this, you do that, right? Doesn't work that well. It's all about building knowledge and persisting that knowledge. Knowledge about how you work together as teams and how you work, right? Adaptivity to changes and flexibility. It's an important thing there. Now comes a difficult one. Focus on value and customer. If you think about, most companies do not focus on value and their customers. What do they focus on? Controlling costs. What's the famous thing in companies? Let's cut some costs. Instead of thinking value. Another one they usually think about is utilization. It's a nice discussion to have when you're coaching a company and they always keep asking, what if some person is not busy in that sprint because his expertise is not that much needed? So then he helps the other people. But we're not optimizing his utilization in his speciality. So what? You're optimizing the value you get out and other things. But most of all, it's a cultural change. So the culture inside that company and how they work has to change. Otherwise, you can't go Agile. It doesn't work. This happens often. Adapting versus defining an Agile transition. Has anyone ever had a request from a client that, please make us a detailed plan on how we change into Agile? They really have these kind of requests. You get a tender that says, we want a detailed plan on what you do exactly in each steps and tell us in what week you're going to do what. Yes, yes. They want it all documented. Yes, right. But they want to manage the transition itself using the traditional project management techniques that you're trying to change with that transition. Which does make no sense, at least to me. And I don't think it will work. Anyone know this example here? University of California. So they didn't put any paths between the buildings, they just put the grass there and let the people walk. And then where the people walked, they later on came and put all the places to walk. So they didn't plan it, they just let people organize or find the best route they like, and then they just made it the official one. Okay. Now, I call this a process, in quotation marks, because it's not really a process in my opinion. This is from John Kotter, so this is basically Change Management 101. Anyone who read stuff like this in university, this usually comes in the first lecture and is one of the first slides you see. I just changed the text slightly to make it a little bit better for us. So, you have basically 8 things that you should be taking into account. Establish a reason for the transition. If you don't have a reason, it is really difficult to change anything in any organization. And all of these 8 points have nothing to do with Agile or software. These are completely generic, changing organization stuff. You need a reason. If you don't have one, create one. You can always create reasons in a company. If you don't have a financial loss that creates a reason, then you can always create one. Just lose some money. Really, that's in the book. Kotter gives us an advice that because a company that is losing money is a good reason for the company to change how it works. So make them lose money. It's really easy for managers to do that. Just start wasting it. You create a transition team. So what does that mean? You get people together that are affected by that change. So in a software company, you wouldn't have only managers sitting in it. You also have developers, testers, all the different people you have in your company. You get them together to actually together figure out how we're going to change. That way you get everyone in the company to participate, at least indirectly. And it doesn't become like only a top-down approach, but it becomes an approach that also has people from the bottom and from the top. That makes it a lot more easier than to convince them to actually do things later on. Next thing, develop a vision and a strategy. So once you have a reason for change, you need to give them a nice vision. Anyone know any nice visions? Anyone heard the Kennedy speech about going to the moon, for example? That kind of stuff I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure that, unfortunately, passed away Steve Jobs was pretty good at giving visions inside their company. So you need to some kind of give them a nice picture of this is where we're going to go in 1 year. Everything is going to be much better than now for the business, for the people, and so on. Then you actually communicate that vision to everyone. Get them to believe in it. Get them to feel for that vision. Once you have that, it's a lot more easier to get people to actually do something because they actually believe in something and they want to achieve that because there's something in them for them and it makes them feel good. Empower people to change. So let them, give them the power to actually then make that vision happen. Do not control them too much. And let them fail in that. Otherwise, they will not learn. One important thing there is generate any kind of success as quickly as possible. Because the moment you have a little bit of success, you can always use that success as an argument why we are doing this. And you can show, see, it works. We got this better here. Maybe you also tried. Makes it a lot easier. Don't let up. Once you start the ball going, do not stop. People are like, they like to settle down and stop and not do anything often. And you have to keep up the momentum because it's really difficult to get people moving again once they have stopped. So make sure they do not stop at any point of time. Keep always changing something new, bringing in something new, add a small change. Okay? And then make all the changes become your culture. That takes time, but once they become the de facto way of working, this is how we operate. We've always done it like this. we've always changed things and we always improved, then you're on the right path. Okay. Well, so now I'm just quickly explaining my picture that I have in background. Actually, whoops. So this is just a tool that we use often for when we design, sorry, not design, when we plan a transition. So you have some kind of objective. You want to achieve something. Let's say, go agile. Now you have different kind of things that make that possible, right? You need to do this in order for achieve that. And these can have certain conditions. Once certain conditions are met, these kind of success factors become possible. Makes sense? Okay. Not going to go more in that. Could have a whole separate talk about just that picture. But need to explain it to if people understand this. Enterprise successfully delivering with Scrum. I just took Scrum as an example here. This could be anything else. Agile, Kanban, whatever. The content will change slightly, but not that much. So what kind of things you might need to make that happen? If the goal is enterprise successfully delivering with Scrum. Well, one thing that I can think of is this. Top management sponsorship. If the managers do not buy in, they can sabotage it really easily, right? And there are a lot of stuff you need to change when you do Agile in a company that are in the control of the top management. How do you convince top management to do Agile? Anyone? Any ideas? That's one thing. Especially evidence of success. Show them that this is successful. Like the benefits, that they are real. Because they can always doubt you that if you say, okay, this is the benefits, they will okay, prove it. Okay, let's prove it. How do we prove it? We have an example. We can, for example, do a pilot project. Let's try it. Let's take one project, one team, let's try it out, see how the time to market is affected in that thing there. We're minimizing the risks. We're only changing one small team, not the whole company. So let's try it out. If it works, they might believe it. Okay. So a couple of things to keep in mind when you do a pilot project. Try the whole process end to end and not just in development, because if you just do the coding part, it might not make any sense. Also get in the business involved and all that, because you want to learn how everything works together and not just one small piece of your whole machine. You do training, product owners and so on. You should have some kind of coaching for the teams and learn from this experience. You want to learn there. That's the important part. It's not about proving that Agile actually works or Scrum works. It's about learning how do we apply it in our environment and where are the potential problems. So if we would scale it up to the whole company, what do we need to do? That's the information you're seeking there. If you just want to prove that Agile actually works, you can just get a case study from someone else or ask another company. There are plenty of them that will give you evidence that it actually works. Okay. So, other things what you might need. You will get a lot of impediments when you actually start doing that. Organizational impediments and so on, team gets impediments. How do you get rid of those impediments? Who removes impediments? Scrum Master. The Scrum Master usually has quite limited influence in an organization because he's usually just working with a team. Once you get into, let's say, bonus systems, does a Scrum Master remove such an impediment that we have a personalized bonus scheme in the company that incentivizes people on how many bugs they find? So what does a Scrum Master do about that? Not much. So you need something a lot higher up that can do something. So that's where, for example, a transition team comes in. Because if you have this transition team that has different roles in there, it also has the role of the higher management in there, right? So these kind of people are needed for impediment removal, because they have the power and the influence in the organization. And this is a place where a Scrum Master can go to if he has an impediment that he can't resolve. He can always go to these guys and say, guys, we have this kind of impediment here. Can you do something about this? So we have the transition team. Different members representing different disciplines. And it contains the sponsor of the whole transition, usually as a product owner. Scrum doesn't exactly 100% fit in this usually, but you can see him as a kind of product owner because he's the one who's sponsoring the whole thing. Now, if you don't have a sponsor in an organization that has the power and the money, you're more likely dead. And usually if it's a 100, 150-person company, the sponsor is something like the CTO or something like that, or the CEO of the company. He has to have decision-making power and say, okay, let's do this. So the members may change over time, and people might join just for a while to actually remove some impediments. Normally we might not have some person in there, and because of this impediment we get some extra person in there. Okay. So what else do we need? If you get a whole list of impediments, you might need some kind of backlog. Okay. What we often call is a transition backlog. It has two kind of things in there. So it contains the tactical actions you want to make when you make a transition. So you might actually plan some things in advance. Okay, we need to do a training program, we need to do awareness raising, and all kind of things. Actually, a lot of these things you can get from this presentation, what kind of actions you might need to do. But it also contains all the impediments. And it gets processed by that team, the transition team, in order of priority. So they will make actions happen, and they remove impediments. Now, if anyone is driving their agile transition using impediments alone, it's like making a piece of software with a bug list. Right? You only have a list of problems and you fix only problems. You're not planning ahead at all. You're just reacting. So have also other stuff in there than just impediments. Have actions in there. So what else might you need when you're doing transition? You need raising the awareness of the people in the company. Otherwise they go like, Agile what? Scrum what? We're going to play rugby? So you have to kind of like explain what it's about, right? Agile is about this, Scrum is this, has 3 roles, ceremonies are this, and so on. That kind of stuff. So you do these kind of Agile Scrum introductions and tell them about things, okay? Now, sometimes people wonder, are we going to do Lean, Agile, or Scrum? Now, this is just my personal opinions, but in my opinion, it's kind of like you have Lean, fits really well with management people. So they understand it, you can explain it there really nicely. You have the Agile values, okay, it works nicely with software. There, you can combine both, and in my opinion, you kind of need both, always. I sometimes explain them as they're 2 different sides of the same coin. You're looking at the same thing, but from a different direction. And that's why it looks slightly different. But both are kind of like aimed at almost the same end result. Then you have the Scrum framework, which is for handling your projects, for example. Now, if you want to do Kanban or something else, then just replace the word Scrum framework with something else. Can be done. And in case you would be doing Scrum, you would have all the values and all that kind of stuff. Okay. That's the kind of awareness stuff you want to raise. What is Lean? What is Agile? What is your process framework you're using? What are the values behind it? The philosophy and these kind of things. Okay? So, marketing and communication. You need to market also your success and all these kind of things and communicate your vision. So especially the success stories. You want to market them. Now, think about this. Who's the best one to tell to other people how good or how Scrum works? The people actually doing it. So once you have a pilot team, you can use that pilot team to ask them, can you please tell the other teams how well Scrum works for you? It's much more easy to believe someone who has been doing it in that organization than someone from the outside. Another thing is, change it to be bottom-up instead of top-down, the marketing. Social media. That's pretty much grassroots, bottom-up kind of marketing structure. People talking to each other instead of directed down from the president to the press conference to the news agency in the TV news, newspaper, and so on, right? Use these kind of bottom-up strategies there. They work a lot better than top-down. Then we actually get to the teams. So you need effective Scrum teams. What might you need for that, for having an effective Scrum team? So one thing is, for example, engineering practices. All these things like TDD and continuous integration and all these kind of things. So you need to introduce these kind of things to the people in that company. Because they need new tools. If you think about this, they have been using Gantt charts and whatever tools you have in your company. You can't use exactly the same tool when you're doing something else. Now, one thing I want to say there is that please do not first buy a tool and then try to do Scrum. I hate that. I've seen that so many times. You go to a company, they hire you as a coach, and they introduce you, yeah, we have these tools here already, so can you please teach also our teams how to use them? And then they have crappy tools, because they have no idea what tool they should be buying, because they have no experience with the whole process, or how Scrum would work, for example. So they just buy something, whatever the salesperson sold them. So I like one tool, no post-its here, but my favorite tool, post-its, whiteboard, flip chart. Simple, easy to use. Everyone can learn them in 5 minutes how to use them. Otherwise, I hate electronic tools. So I'll accept Keynote. Keynote I love. Okay, other things you might like. Coaching, don't forget that. Get some decent coaching in there. You're talking about changing the behavior of people. It doesn't happen on their own. Anyone ever play any kind of sports, team sports? Did your team have a coach? Why? What? Coach is completely unnecessary. Let's just throw the basketball players. You like basketball here in Lithuania, I hear? So let's just throw the basketball players together and let's go play, right? Works really well, and they win the championships like that. No. They have someone there who helps them to become a good team and learn how to work together and make it actually happen in a good way. You need the same thing for software people. So get a coach. Either hire one or get an external one. I'm available if you want to hire me. I can hand out my business cards here, so come talk to me afterwards. Focus on changing the behavior there. That's the important thing. Make the people work together. And don't provide the solutions. Help them learn themselves. That's how you make them. You teach them how to solve problems instead of just give them the solution. I hate that when consultants come and they just go like, oh, here's the solution, do. Instead of helping you find out the solution yourself. It's much more sustainable that way. Okay? Well, asking questions is one way how you get there. And what is also important, that you get someone to coach your coaches. Because in the long term, you want to have your own coaches if you're any decent sized company. If you're 100 to 150 people, you should have your in-house coach in the long term. Okay. Some other things. Training. Don't forget that. Might be important. That's the knowledge part. But always get the coaching in also there. Technical excellence. That's a mind shift for the people doing software often. So make the team feel responsible for quality, for making excellent products. Because they will feel a lot of pressure from, let's say, the business or product owner all the time to deliver faster, deliver more, and these kind of things. If they don't have this inner belief that I'm a real craftsman, if you know the software craftsmanship movement, that I do quality work, I do good work, and then they learn how to push back a little bit to the people, like, no, we can't do this that fast. We have to do this and this and that, we have to refactor, we have to test it to make high quality software. Otherwise, we destroy our product in the long term. We create too much technical debt. Okay? Some other things. Cultural changes. Support the growth of all the new roles you have. So you have Scrum Masters, product owners, and so on. They might need some support. You can't just make them, now you're a Scrum Master, have fun. They might need some kind of help, right? Sometimes. Okay. Customer and value orientation. I already slightly talked about that. You have to change the people's mind in that. that we're about creating value, and we're there to help our customers. We're not here to cut costs or to have maximum utilization. We want to create value. Another one is get people to think about systems. So if you look at the company, it's a huge system, right? And you're usually working in a small part of it. And usually you only see your small part. But you have to look at the whole. If you just make your own part better, you might make the other parts worse. And you have to think about that. Get this kind of mind shift in people that it's not just the testing department, the development department, it's the whole company. Sorry, forgot to change the slide. Sustainability. You kind of want Agile to be permanent in your company, right? Or you're just doing it for the fun for 1 year. So if you want it to be sustainable, you also need to do some things. So, building knowledge. So what might that mean? You might create something called community of practices. Anyone have this? Yeah, a couple of you. So, for example, community of practice could be of Scrum Masters. Have the Scrum Masters come together. They have a lot of knowledge. I know something about being a Scrum Master. You don't. I can share my knowledge. I can help you. We can share experiences and so on. We can support each other. These kind of things. They often help quite a lot. Then, training program and career path. So now you're a Scrum Master, what's next? What's your career path after that? Is it like first team member, Scrum Master, product owner, manager, or what? By the way, this is not a good idea, have this kind of developer, Scrum Master, product owner, manager path. Doesn't make usually sense. So figure out some kind of how you can, if you like a junior level Scrum Master and you have the senior level Scrum Master or whatever or something, people like this kind of career paths. How to get a little bit forward. How much time I have? 5. Okay. So, internal coaches I mentioned. Get some internal coaches. That's really important if you want to be sustainable over the long term. You always have people coming in, you have new teams, you have people changing and so on. Who will coach them? Every time you get a new team, who will coach that team? What if the Scrum Master is new? Are you assuming the new Scrum Master can coach? He's just had his CSM and he has never done anything else. And now he's supposed to be coaching? Doesn't usually work that well. And final thing, Agile leadership. You have to change the mindset of a lot of management, that they're not there to command and control, they're there to serve. They're there to help the people actually doing the work so that they can make their work more easy and more fast and more productive, create more value and so on. It's not about control. It's about helping them. You have to turn upside down the traditional pyramid in your company where the boss is at the top and the workers are at the bottom. Turn it around. Make the workers at the top and the boss is down there helping them. That's what the Japanese do a lot. If you look at Toyota, that's their philosophy. Okay? So, some conclusions. Agile is pretty much mainstream, at least in small and medium-sized companies. There are a lot of big companies that claim to be doing Agile, but not that many are. And the rest probably will start in the next couple of years doing Agile. So, getting more and more relevant there. Success with 1 or 2 projects is not the same thing as having successfully implemented Agile in a whole organization. 1 or 2 projects or 1 or 2 teams, pretty easy to do. Try an organization that has 100 teams and get them all working together. You have a project with 100 teams. That's a lot harder to do. It requires a vision, it requires planning, strategy, and constant inspection and adaptation. You cannot plan it in detail, but you can have a vision. That's where we want to go. And we take one small step towards that and iterate and iterate and iterate and so on. And it's definitely a cultural change. It will take time, and not everyone will like it. There's studies that 15% will always hate whatever you do in a company. So no matter what you do, 15% will always say, I don't like it. Nothing you can do about that. They have to learn to live with that. So you can't please everyone. Okay? That's it.